Good morning, and thank you so much for joining AccelerateHer at Asia TechX. Today, we're going to be talking about how to become a chief in the tech industry. Joining me on this session is going to be Vice President and GM of Red Hat, Marjet Andriesse, as well as her Chief Technology Officer from Shenton Insurance Brokers, Vivien Chua. Thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elka, and hi, Vivian. Good to see you again.
Hi.
So I'd love to start off about talking about the present. In a few words, can you tell me a little bit about your role today? Sorry, why don't we start with you, Mariette?
All right. Oh, yeah, sure, of course. So my role today is, as you just mentioned, I am working at Red Hat. We are a company that offers open source solutions to enterprise customers. We are all about open hybrid cloud and all about open source and open company. I am what they call the GM or the VP for APAC, which means I'm responsible for the whole of business in APAC. Now, APAC is a pretty large region for us. I think everyone has their own little definition, but with us, it starts in India. Then we've got the north of Asia, as we call it, so China, Hong Kong, Japan, Korea, and then we go into ASEAN, Australia, and New Zealand. So it's a pretty big patch. And unfortunately, I can't travel at the moment, but I think we all struggle with that because I would love to meet the teams, because that's obviously very important to connect, especially in such a diverse region as APAC is.
I completely agree, and I think everyone agrees with you on the travel aspect. We're ready to get back out there.
Absolutely.
Vivian, how about you? What are you working on these days?
I'm currently the Chief Technology Officer of Shenton Insurance Brokers. We are a MAS licensed entity as an insurance and reinsurance broker. So we cover both personal lines of insurance that includes travel, maid, car insurance, as well as business insurance. The common ones that people get are SME packages. Sometimes they need directors and officers liability insurance, professional indemnity insurance. So some of these are actually required by law, is mandatory in Singapore, and we do have a lot of people, clients interested in this aspect. And the other aspects that we do that is more regional is reinsurance broking. Because Singapore is actually a major insurance hub in the region. So we have Lloyd's market in Singapore, and we have a lot of, most of the major actually insurers and reinsurers that have presence in Singapore. So regional companies, sometimes big family companies, they look for reinsurance for their assets, and they might not be able to get the capacity they need in their own home country, and that's where they would actually reinsure that risk out through the Singapore market. So that's basically where I'm at.
Thank you for sharing that, Vivian. Is something that drew you to that role the ability to help different people? It sounds like that was a bit of the focus right now. Is that what drew you to this role?
Yeah, so my main work in this company is more the technology aspect. So we are looking to digitalize a lot of insurance processes. A lot of insurers actually, I think, slower in this digitalization process, and they have a lot of legacy systems, which they are still holding on to. So it's harder for them to get on board. So as an intermediary, my role is to help them, become more digital, whether is it in their client acquisition process or even in some of their back office operations. We come in and we advise them on what they might do.
Wonderful. Mariette, were you involved in any kind of STEM program or technology programs when you were growing up?
No, that's an interesting question, and I just want to, off the back of what Vivian just said. So I have a master's in economics, so I am absolutely not an engineer, and yet here I am in the tech industry. I started my career, oh my gosh, 30 years ago. There wasn't even a tech industry then. The companies that Red Hat didn't exist, Google didn't exist, Amazon didn't exist. So it's amazing that this whole industry that I'm now working in didn't exist then. So no, I don't have a STEM background, but I think that's probably why I really embarked on this journey, because as Vivian just mentioned, this whole digital transformation that we're going through is impacting every enterprise. And it doesn't matter if you're insurance or you're in banking or you're even in fast moving consumer goods, it's impacting everyone. So the enterprise environment, they're all looking for trusted partners to help them on this journey. And I think that's the most exciting part about my role. And I think famous people, so it's not my quotes, have said that, you know, every CIO is now a cloud operator. And I think very famous here in Singapore, the CIO of DBS, Jimmy, even said that I'm not a bank, I'm a software company. And that is where we are, right? You know, I'm a software company that coincidentally has a banking license. And that sounds nifty and cool and exciting, and it's attracting a lot of people to the industry, but it's a hard journey, that digital transformation. And I think maybe because I don't come from that environment because it didn't exist, is that I like helping and guiding how are we going to go through that. It's not always easy, and everyone talks about hybrid cloud, and so what is that all about? So no STEM background, and yet smack in the middle of tech.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head there is talking about the pivot. Everybody is going through their own pivot as a company, but also let's talk about your pivot as your own career and your own professional development. Vivian, did you hit a time in your career where you really just saw your whole world shift?
I'm actually from a STEM background. When I started college in the early 2000s, computing wasn't popular. So I was electrical engineer, and then I actually was influenced by my friends in college. Because in the US at the time, I think they were more advanced than Asia or Singapore was in computing. So I started to do my research on it, and for grad school, I actually switched to a computing course. I was the first batch of students in that program. It was actually a data science program at Stanford, and it was 2005. And you know, the idea of data science did not exist at all. So when I started grad school, everyone was like, "What are you studying? You know, does this course even exist?" So yeah, I think, you know, for those of us who actually had our careers a bit earlier before tech became a big thing, there's definitely going to be some pivot present at some point of our journey.
I agree. That's amazing. You were at Stanford at the beginning. So it sounds like both of you were excited to join an industry that people were a little skeptical about as well. So Mariette, if there was no STEM in the background, what inspired you to be so open-minded to the technology industry as opposed to kind of resistance to change?
Well, that's a great question. I'm all about change. I love change. One of my mantras is curiosity. It's always been my driver. Actually, I have a 3C framework for myself. It's complexity, curiosity, and cohesion. Now, yeah, it's an interesting one. So complexity is all about, look, I'm a global citizen myself. I've lived in 3 continents. I worked in 2. So from a very young age with my parents, I've been traveling around, and that kind of opens your mind. And complexity has always been a big driver for me. I like being the challenger and getting into new things. So obviously when this whole, and this is my second digital revolution because I am of that age. I was working in the telco industry, what used to be cutting edge, but it's not anymore. With all due respect for all telcos, I've worked with them for many years, but it's all about tech now. When the internet came, and that was in the 2000s when Vivian was going into her Stanford thing, that when we got internet up and running, and it was all about connectivity and how can we connect and how can we connect quicker. And then now is the second revolution with the cloud, and it is so it is so cool to be part of that. So, you know, it's complexity, it is curiosity. I like new things. And the third thing is cohesion, because even though, and that's what sometimes people forget, that, oh, you're in tech, it must be all just engineers. And some people will even say, oh, it's a nerdy environment, or it's all about data. And it's not. At the end of the day, the difference is people. And we're an open source software company, so we don't even have proprietary software licenses. The code is out there. So I always make the joke and say, our people are our IP. So cohesion for me is very important, where you know, we really need to work together as a team. And I find it very interesting that when you're in this industry, you've got so many finally different kind of peoples, because the STEM background or an economics background or a history background, you can all add to this journey that we're on, and that makes it exciting.
I completely agree. And I think that this is really opening up different levels of economic background, different genders, different races. People are feeling like tech and different ways that they can contribute is really approachable. Vivian, have you found that in your industry as well over the last 5 to 10 years? Do you feel like the common person that you see around the office is changing?
I think that there's bound to be changes. I think when I first started my career, I was actually not in insurance. I was a professor at NUS, and I was teaching computing courses to civil engineers, and then coming from that background and then now into the insurance industry, I can see that the older generation of my contemporaries in this industry, they are more traditional. Insurance is actually a very paper-based industry. In the past, you know, they would have a lot of paperwork and you know, policies and all that. Everything is printed out. But now our company, we're moving to the cloud. All our documents are in the cloud. We have a document management system, you know, and we have a cloud-based operational database software, and we are selling mainly through the cloud. There are still parts of it that is very traditional, that actually we're still in especially large complex risks that actually need more personalized individual inputs. Those are still done in the very traditional manner, and I do not see technology actually impacting it that much. There have been attempts, but nothing has really been successful in that aspect. But other than that, everything around the office is computerized. And another role I play actually in my current organization is in our trading company. We are a paper trading company, interestingly. And even as a paper trading company, we actually digitalize all our operations. All our documents are in the cloud, with the exceptions of those that need original copies, because, you know, the one of the main industries that is still paper-based would be shipping. Shipping documents have to be printed out, and the originals have to be given to the banks and all that. So aside from that, you know, a paper company is becoming a cloud-based company or an internet company, you know. So that's where I see that we're going, that this change is inevitable, and we have to do the best, you know, to power forward in this.
Vivian, when you were studying and now even so in your company, do you feel like you see women being represented, or do you feel like you're the only woman in the room?
Coincidentally, in my company, in the mid-management level, you know, we have a lot of women, especially in finance roles. But I think that in the tech roles in my company, you know, there's still a significant male representation. But when it comes to top level management, senior management, the board, it tends to be mainly male dominated. Yeah.
Mariette, what about you?
Yeah, unfortunately, the same answer. It is still, yeah, and maybe is it disappointing or not? I don't know. But in the past 30 years, not a lot has changed. When I joined, there were no, you know, everyone always asks who's your who's your role model? And then I'm like, there were no role models. I was the only woman around, and especially because I went into the telco industry, which was and still is very male dominated. I've always been surrounded by men, and yeah, it has its advantages and its disadvantages, but yeah, we're not there yet. There's still a lot of work to do, but we're getting there. Let's stay positive on that. We're getting there.
And so talking to the generation that's coming up right now, right behind you, these women are asking, what is the skill that they can work on right now? What is the skill that's in demand that employers are looking for this?
Yeah, I think, and in that way, it's great to have more female executives that have that STEM background. Unfortunately, I don't. But even in my days, there were not a lot of ladies going to university doing economics. But yeah, I think that's the future. The future is, if we're just making the joke about, a bank is not a bank anymore, but a software company with a banking license, and you can say that about most industries, the data scientists and everything, that's the future. So if you can cope with that kind of environment and you're good with numbers, things like that, then that's the way to go. And I think sometimes we narrow it too much. And because ladies, when they have the choice to go to university, think, oh, I have to be amazing at STEM, otherwise I won't do STEM. I think everyone, if you're just good at what you can do STEM. It's not, it's not that hard, to be honest. I don't know, Vivian, is it that hard? Do you need to be like a wizard? I think it sometimes has the stigma that you need to be some genius to go into STEM. And I think that's what's keeping a lot of young girls from going into that field.
I've always liked math and science, so it really depends on individual talent and your likes and dislikes. I would say to any young person to just study whatever they are good in. I think that's the most important because that's the only way you can excel, and also to think out of the box. I've always done that. I think throughout my entire journey, when I studied data science, no one knew what data science was. So the future is actually something that can't be imagined today. So if you find an area that no one knows anything about, maybe that's what you should do. Because too often I think that people, whether they are male or females, they tend to follow the same path. They tend to do the same thing. Whether is it to be a lawyer, doctor, accountant. And frequently, when the competition is very tough, there's a lot of people in the field. It's very hard to excel. So for any young person, just do something different. You never know, right?
We're into the point of Mariette, go after the curiosity. And women tend to fall under the imposter syndrome and not wanting to start something because they're afraid of failure. And I agree, is to encourage the chance to fail, try something new, feel the risk of being bad at something for the first time. Thank you both for contributing to that. I appreciate it.
It's fascinating on that point that we probably all have quite some mentees, and I always give them homework and I say, make a SWOT of yourself. And I find that the ladies always struggle with their strengths. They come back with a big list of these are my weaknesses, and I'm like, no. But let's not focus on your weaknesses. What are your strengths? Because your strengths, it's just what Vivian just said. Your strengths are going to make you successful because that's what you're good at. Obviously, you also need to, depending on the weaknesses, work on them. But hardly anybody is capable of being an all-rounder. So focus on what you're really good at and excel at it. It is, and it'll give you so much energy to do that. But yeah, so it's an interesting piece of homework that mentees usually struggle with.
I think I would struggle with that as well. In a good way, but I agree. I think it's good to remind yourself of things you can work on and things that you're already great at. So talking about things you can work on, I'm sure both of you had some learning experiences, not failures, but a chance to grow. We'll start with you, Vivian. Do you have an anecdote that you'd like to share of just something that you overcame, either in the workplace or just a personal challenge that really helped you jump ahead?
Um, I think one of, because I'm an engineer by training, so I tend to be more introverted in nature. I do like to spend time alone. I like to think of most engineers being like that. So I actually tried to overcome this, and one of the things that I did was to be more active in the alumni associations in Singapore. And interestingly, for someone who's more introverted in nature, I started organizing like alumni events to bring people together in Singapore, and we had 500 people coming to some of these events, and it was really popular among the young alumni in Singapore back then when I did that. So I like to think that's something that I attempted to overcome.
That's great. Thank you. Mariette, what about you?
I think for me, the biggest learning was when I started working as a general manager or managing director or a country manager when I went abroad. It's a good learning because, and I always recommend everybody to do that for a while, because you are so comfortable in your own culture and in your own language that you kind of think, oh, okay, I got it going. I got this. I know how to be a leader. It's all going very smoothly. But then when you go to a different culture, it's almost like driving a car with blinded windows, because you can't, the language is not your language. The way that things are done are not the way that you're used to it. So what it forces you to do is take a step back and really spend time on understanding what's happening here in the workspace. What am I seeing? What am I not seeing? It's like your senses, you force your senses to go open, and it's sometimes a humbling experience, because no one gets that right in the first time. But to take that step backwards is one of the biggest lessons and gifts I gave myself, to kind of redefine yourself in, oh, okay, not doing everything on the automatic pilot. I think that is something that I would recommend everyone. You could also do it by switching industries, but going to a different country really puts yourself in an interesting spot and stretches yourself.
I totally agree. And I think that it makes me remember that the world is very small and we do have a lot of great similarities too, but also best practices to pick up from each other whenever we leave our little comfort zone.
Yeah.
So speaking of comfort zones, I'd like to ask something a little bit personal, if you guys don't mind. Women are often asked, how do you do it all? What is it like with career-life balance? I want to turn this on the head. You are fighting every day for every hour of making sure you're enjoying how you spend your day. You want to feel like a complete person, and you get to choose what that means for you. What were some of the ways that you knew this was the right life choice for you? And let me say, even more so, is did you feel support from your peers, or did you feel more of a conflict because of the choices you made? Guys, Vivian, we'll start with you. Sorry. One.
Okay.
I know that's a long question.
Yeah. So I think that for me, the defining moment when I felt like this, was a good life career choice, was when I was doing my maternity leave. So I'm not sure if that sounds weird, but in Singapore, we get 4 months off for our maternity leave. So I was sitting at home for 4 months, and I was really, really bored. And I realized that I could never be a Tai Tai, which is like, the local slogan for housewife, and stay home all the time. So I knew that, I wanted to be in the workforce and continue working. And it also helps that I have a daughter. She's 4 this year. So I want to be a role model to her. She grows up thinking that, mommy goes to work every day. And when we are at home every day, she'll tell me, Mommy, I want to go to work with you, you know. And I think that would help the next generation of women, realize that they could have a career of their own versus my generation, because my mom did not work. She was a housewife. And that was the norm in my generation. Many of my friends, my peers, mothers do not work either. So yeah, I like to think that this would be the good choice for me to do.
But I love that you realize that at maternity leave, during maternity leave too, because I think that a lot of those aha moments come during a life change, and you're like, yes, I am on the right path. I do want to have a career and a family, and this is right. What about you, Mariette?
Well, same background, same different generation, but same setting. Mother, housewife, um, peers or friends. We all went to university, but after that, most of them, kind of went back into being a housewife. So I was a little bit the oddball out, and especially when I started going abroad and living abroad. And my husband also has his career, so we're two careers abroad, which is difficult to manage because when one goes to Japan and the other has the job here, and currently he has a job in Indonesia, Jakarta, which is only an hour's flight, but with COVID, it's very complicated, as you can imagine. So we need to balance that, and I think the wake-up moment every time is, am I still excited? Does it still give me energy? In this regional role that I have, it's long hours. Pre-COVID, I think I lived on SQ. I was more sleeping on the SQ flight than I was in my own bed. But I would get so much energy from it. And I think that's the trade-off, that you think, no, the minute that fades, the minute that I feel that I'm just, I can't add value, or I can't empower people, or things aren't going well, is the minute it doesn't work. Because yeah, it's long hours, but I love spending them on the right thing. So it's an easy trade-off. In that respect, it's an easy trade-off. It gives me so much energy, and then it doesn't matter that you have to. So I receive a lot of energy, and so it's okay to give a lot of energy. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
I agree. I think the older I get, I realize how valuable my time really is, and I want to spend it the way. But that old saying, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life, right? Well, as we're winding down our session, I just have one last question, and it's a bit of a dreaming question, but where do you see your industry going in the next 10 years? And Mariette, we'll start with you.
Oh my gosh, well, the tech industry is the leading industry. I think I
The
started.
spoilers, give us the spoilers.
Well, it's all about the cloud, and as long as you're got, the industry is all about moving workloads, as we call it, all that data that we have, and there's so many data points that have to go into the cloud. And I can get technical here, but once we've got 5G going, then it's going to even multiply by gazillion. So that is absolutely where it's going. So if you're ambitious, and you don't even have to go into the industry, because like I said, you can go to what they call a bricks and mortar company, or you can go to an FMCG. Let's take Coca-Cola. They've been making Coca-Cola for hundreds of years, and yet they're also digitizing. So this is absolutely the way to go. And like we just said, it doesn't matter STEM or economics, but just start getting excited about where we're heading. There's so much out there. It's a really cool journey, and it'll be that journey for, well, I don't know, at least another, I guess, 10 years.
On Coca-Cola, I saw that they, a while ago, they were making the Coke machines make the found every time you walked by it at amusement parks. And I was like, oh, that's
There you
genius.
go. Well, maybe
Vivian, what
see.
about you?
I think in the insurance industry, we're already starting to see a lot of digitalization, and definitely it's going to continue. A lot of processes, as I mentioned previously, is still very traditional, and particularly in the life insurance industry, I think that we're starting to see more life insurers go digital. But there is an MAS requirement that I think you still need to speak to an agent or something like that before you can purchase your life insurance policy or your endowment plan. Just because it's a larger purchase, it's a life-changing purchase, you have to start paying for it for the next 20 years. Hence, there's still an in-person component to it. I think that moving forward, a lot of this in-person component would go away, just like in KYC. Previously, financial institutions, when they do KYC, you have to do an in-person KYC, but now you can do a digital KYC using a phone. So I don't see why you can't do that with the life insurance industry. Certainly the personal lines for general insurance, they are already very digital. You can buy all sorts of general insurance products, travel insurance, maid insurance, car insurance, personal accident insurance, and you name it, it's all online. Even something to protect your phone screen cover, you can buy it over the internet. It's very digital. But the only part that probably is less digital would be the more complex risk that requires a lot of underwriting. While there's actually automated underwriting, so there's software that you can actually use, and you can they can make a decision for you immediately, especially if the risk is reasonably simple, whether the underwriter wants to accept it or accept with conditions or to decline it. But I think that we will also see more and more of such risks being automated underwriting. So what we're actually seeing is a job transformation, because if you follow the trend of what I'm trying to tell you is that you're going to hear life insurance agents been out of job. You're going to hear underwriters been out of job, right? And it's going to be a major process, and this group of people would have to be able to transform to survive in this new world that we live in. So I think that the next 10 years in the insurance industry will be a very exciting time for us. And we will see, I think, that a lot of growth as well with transformation, digital transformation, and more, insurance purchases that can be made across borders. So there'll be a lot of changes moving forward.
And hopefully those underwriters and brokers will feel like this is a great new tool in their tool belt to really help automate the processes as well. I know, like you said, they'll definitely have to be the evangelists for the new software over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us on this panel. I really enjoyed hearing how you became chief and a little bit about what's going on in each of your industries. Thank you so much for joining AccelerateHer Asia TechX. And audience, thank you so much for tuning in. Coming up next, please join us for a fireside chat between Debbie Lee, the founder of Tech TV, and Michael Lentz, the partner at Golden Gate Ventures, as they discuss life lessons from the world of founders. Thank you so much again. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, and bye.